Hi everyone, Lisa here with Down to Earth Gardening and Design. Welcome to our video today. Today I'm going to be planting some gladiolas and some dahlias in containers. So we've been really busy in the garden and I love spending time with my grandkids, and I'm a little late to the game and I have lots of dahlias left over, and I overordered some gladiola this year. So I was talking to my daughter Hannah yesterday, and we decided whatever we have left, we're going to try to squeeze in some containers because otherwise it's going to be a bust and I'm not going to forfeit my flowers. So it's a perfect project to share with you, and I do love my containers because they are portable, so you can move them around on your patio, your deck, depending on where you're entertaining, or even if you have a little bit of a lull in your garden, put the containers right in the garden. So there are some similarities with dahlias and glads, and we're going to talk about those. And then there's also some differences, but they both do really well in containers. There's just a few tips on how to plant them in containers that I'm going to give you, and then I'm going to show you what I'm doing here today. I thought it would be a great project because we all get so busy. And if you remember my tulip video that I put out in December, I had tons of bulbs left over and I was late to the game and we put them in late. And you know what? That's okay because you will just stagger your bloom time. So you'll have continual blooms longer. So I'm just trying to think of the positive side here, and we will just have flowers later into the season because we are approaching summer very quickly here. And typically I like to plant all of my seeds, or most of them, and my dahlias and my glads when the soil warms up and we are way out of danger from frost. So they do like their soil warm. So this is okay to do now. All right, so let's get started with the project. I want to talk about my dahlias for a minute because what is different with the dahlias and the gladiolas is really just a little bit about planting, because the dahlias are considered, let's find a nice one for you here. The dahlias are considered tubers, and the gladiola are considered to be corms. So you're going to see me working with both here, and they both look very different. So the dahlias, I have one new that I ordered, and then the rest of them have been in storage. Same with my gladiolas, some in storage and some new. So one of the things that they do have uh, that's similar is that in my zone, which is planting hardiness zone 6B, I have to remove them both for the winter and store them. So more to come on that. And we do have some videos out on dahlias and how to treat those. So I will be removing the tubers and the corms from the containers when it gets to be late fall. Or the other beauty of this project is just store the containers and then put them in your garage for the winter, bring them out in the mid to late spring, depending on what zone you're in, and that's it. So that's a lot easier than digging in your garden and planting in your garden, especially when it comes to the dahlias, because I don't know about all of you at home, but I deal with voles and they love dahlia tubers. So I do have to plant them with protection. I do have a video out on that, but that is quite a bit of work. So this takes a little work out of it there too. One of the things that is really important is your container selection. So I do want it to be lightweight because I am going to move them around, but they must have drainage holes. And I have a little clip of us drilling some holes into the bottom of these plastic containers. And I habitually always put one in the center, but really what you should be looking for is the low point where the water would sit, and that's where you want to put your drainage holes. And then you just want to fill your containers with some well-draining potting soil. So another tip on containers is the size, because especially for the dahlia tubers, the roots go a little deeper. So for the dahlia tubers, you really want your container to be about 12 inches deep at minimum and about that wide as well. I'm going to be planting an assortment, but I have some dinner plate dahlias and those get pretty tall. So I wouldn't want to put them in a tiny pot. The gladiola, on the other hand, you can put in a slightly smaller pot. That should be a minimum of 8 inches deep. And I would say, depending on how many you're going to put in the container, about 8 inches wide. So, what I have here are my containers are about 24 inches tall and 18 inches in diameter. So, because I have so many, I'm going to try to plant several in each container. So let's do our first container with the gladiola corms. And I'm just going to show you quick here. They are called Orleans. Now, the company that I order from, they were pretty great. I ordered a larger corm size and I ordered 25 of them and they weren't available. I guess there was a lot of rainfall this growing season, and so they had to ship some smaller bulbs. So usually I do like my corms a little bit larger, but they were nice enough to send me some extra. So that was pretty nice. All you want to do, you can use your trowel if you'd like, you may not need it, is just sink the bulbs about 4 to 6 inches down below the surface. And they recommend about 4 to 6 inches apart. I'm going to squeeze them all in here. And I think they should be 4 inches or maybe slightly closer. But at this point, I've got to use them up. All right, I'm not going to bury them all until I have them all planted, just so I can see if I have any empty spots here or the distance that I'm planting. This should be a nice full container of glads. And I have to tell you, glads are a little sentimental to me because I had a great aunt and uncle that had a farm stand and they would sell cut flowers. And in particular, they grew gladiolas. And I can just remember as a kid being out in their garden. And I remember a time when they were as tall as me, and it was such a beautiful feeling to be out in the garden with the flowers there. Okay, so we're going to make sure they're all down 4 to 6 inches. Cover them up. If you want to add a little extra soil, then now's a good time to do that. And then we can call this one all done and move on to the next. I also like to have saucers with my containers. I don't know if you can see here. I just bought an inexpensive clear plastic saucer. And that way, when we're watering, we won't have to water as frequently if we fill up the tray as well. But we'll talk about aftercare in a minute. Let's move on to the dahlia tubers. Now, when you plant your dahlia tubers, this is a nice one here. This one is called Mom Special, by the way, but Mom Special, very, very pretty dahlia. And one of the benefits about planting it a little later is it has some growth on it already. So the trick with dahlias is you should be planting the eyes. So this is where the growth starts here, the little buds or the bud eyes. You want to plant those below the soil surface a few inches. Now it's looking like I may only fit this one here or maybe another dahlia in this one pot. So if I wasn't in such a rush, I probably would just put one single here in this, but like I said, I'm not going to forfeit any of these. Okay, because the dahlia tuber needs to be 5 inches about for the bud eyes here below the soil surface. I am just going to remove a little bit here into my little trug. All right, I'm going to try to do 2 in this container. So I just picked a smaller tuber, but this is actually a dinner plate. This is one of my daughter Hannah's favorites. It's called Strawberry Ice. So beautiful, true, light pink, stunning dinner plate dahlia. And then I'm just going to offset them a little bit. So if you want to make your container visually interesting, and here's a design tip, even if you're using just one, you can off-center it. You don't have to put it right in the center. But I'm going to stagger them a bit because I have 2 just to make room. And then that's it. I'm going to tag them. I love to keep things tagged. You can see even in storage, I try to put little tags on things. So here's another one that I'm going to be planting, Frank Holmes, which is a pom-pom style. So get my little tags out here. So we have Mom Special. And then if you'd like, you can just put the date on the back of the tag that you planted, just for tracking purposes. And that's it. So pretty easy, right? So in my opinion, this is a great way to plant your gladiola corms and your dahlia tubers. It's a lot less work, and we'll have a lot of fun moving our pots around where we need them. So a little bit of aftercare. Now, the other thing that they have in common is the aftercare. So number one is they both can get pretty tall and require staking, and that's pretty easy. You can even just use some little thin bamboo stakes in there. And then number two is they all love their full sun. So you want to make sure you have them in a full sun area, which is about 6+ hours of sun per day. And then watering needs, number three, also very similar. So they do need consistent moisture. And as I've mentioned with containers before, containers dry out a little quicker. So a couple of hot tips for you are to use your saucer. So I have a little clear plastic saucer underneath to catch some water. That way, if you miss watering for a day, there'll be some collected in the bottom and it can draw up the moisture through the drainage holes. Our number two to help with watering is you can put a layer of mulch on top of your containers, and that will help retain the moisture. And then as far as aftercare, I also will fertilize with a liquid fertilizer about once a week. And that's it. Pretty exciting to have some beautiful containers of flowers out on my back patio. So that's it for today. If you enjoyed the video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up and stay tuned and subscribe to our channel because we have a lot more gardening coming your way.